Live from Washington, D.C., you're in the War Room. It is Wednesday, the 9th of December, the year of our Lord 2020. A podcast that now has almost 23 million downloads. Of course, we're distributed on every major platform in the world, and really honored to be co-produced by Real America's Voice on Dish Channel 219, Comcast 113 in Chicago in the Midwest, and of course the John Frederick Radio Network and every other platform known to man. So much news breaking, no cold open. We're getting right into it. By the way, breaking news as we start, yes, the feds, the senior U.S. attorney in Delaware has started a formal investigation of, guess who, Hunter Biden. I want to give a hat tip to Jack Maxey and the entire crew on the hard drive from hell that forced this. After a long time, you got to embarrass these people. They're now looking at his taxes. Okay, looking at his taxes. Will be more on that later in the show. I think it says, and I believe it was Senator Johnson, one of the senators, stepped forward and said, and now you cannot depend upon, if somehow Biden steals this, you can't depend upon his attorney general to investigate his own family. That's why President Trump right now, before the formal start of President Trump's second term, in his transition to his second term, needs to announce a special prosecutor on the Biden family crime operation, starting with Hunter and Joe Biden's brother, James. More on that in a minute. I want to bring in Raheem Kassam. Raheem, this lawsuit is now metastasizing across the country. In fact, as soon as you just came on, John Eastman, the president's lawyer in this special situation, just filed. They're going to be, I guess, co-plaintiff now with the state of Texas. 17 states have written amicus briefs of their intent to support. They have not come in yet as co-plaintiffs. And there's other states, I think, piling in on the other side of the football. Walk us through where we are in this, because this is exploding as we go on. And remember, if this gets argued in front of the Supreme Court, there will be no Biden administration, right? Right now, there's 47% of the American people think this thing was stolen, and in fact, if YouTube and Google and all these guys were so confident that Biden won this and got 80 million votes, they wouldn't be out there trying to suppress voices that are sitting there going, hey, there's constitutional issues out here, there's election fraud issues, there's a voter fraud issues. It's all got to be vetted. It's all got to be looked at. Raheem Kassam, give us your assessment.
Right. They'd be saying, fine, spend your money, waste your time, look foolish at the end of it, and go ahead. But instead, what they're doing is they're attempting to shut it down very quickly with prejudice, destroy evidence along the way. They are acting like guilty parties. Guess why? Because they're guilty parties. Steve, I went through the president's intervention just before we went live this afternoon, and I want to quote from it. The complaint being, quote, in the 2020 election, under the guise of responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, election officials in several key states, sometimes on their own and sometimes in connection with court actions brought by partisan advocates, made a systemic effort to weaken measures to ensure a fair and impartial election by creating new rules for the conduct of the election, rules that were never approved by the legislatures of the defendant states as required by Article 2 of the United States Constitution. These new rules were aimed at weakening, ignoring, or overriding provisions of state law that are aimed at ensuring the integrity of the voting process. And as you say, we're now up to 17 states that have filed amicus briefs, coming in on the back of Ken Paxton, the Texas AG's suit on all of this. However, I will say to the audience, that is not enough. They need to co-sign up to this thing. And I tweeted just moments ago, you can check it on my Twitter account, at Raheem Kassam, all the telephone numbers that you guys need out there as the base to call, in which states, who to call, with the phone numbers, publicly available information. We're not doxing anybody here.
Yeah.
This is centralized, switchboard numbers that you can call for the AGs in all of these states to tell them, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to join up to this case. But you're right.
Yeah,
It's exploding.
Let me go through this right now. Missouri, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, West Virginia. They've all supported this and written, I guess, amicus briefs. What you need to do is contact, particularly if you're in these states, contact your attorney generals. You want them as a co-plaintiff, right? That you want to totally throw in here. The Supreme Court's got to hear this thing.
That's right.
Raheem,
Yeah,
strategic.
that's right. And look,
go ahead.
you listen to what I just quoted from on the president's intervention, and John Eastman's written that up, and it's incredibly well written. And John Eastman is an incredibly serious, excellent, exceptional constitutional lawyer and professor. You go through it; it's 30-odd pages long, and there's nothing in there that's in kind of like what are they calling it? They say long shot world, right? This is not long shot world. This is Article 2 of the United States Constitution that they're saying they're very clearly rolling out exactly where this has been breached. I think this is going all the way.
Talk about the importance of even strategically, of even getting this argued in front of the Supreme Court. How would this change the power dynamic right now with the oppressive mainstream media that just says all this is baseless? Just even having guys like Eastman and some in the Solicitor General at Texas, Ken Paxton, other constitutional lawyers they will bring on here. How important is just even having the argument?
And maybe and hopefully Ted Cruz involved in that in some way along the way as well. Look, this is as much a legal and constitutional game as a ethics game. Allowing the case to be heard will wake up. We already know that it's about 50-50 out there in the country, right? People who think the election was defrauded versus people who don't. And when you think about the amount of suppression that's going on of the actual information, the amount of disinformation that the American public is having forced down their throats by the establishment media and all the lower courts and the politicized courts, this will level the playing field in that regard. This will allow the American public to hear exactly what the case is, why it's being brought, and I think that number then changes. It changes to somewhere more like 70% of the American public will soon come to believe that the election was defrauded, and that is very important. You've got to carry public opinion on these things.
Let me ask you, Raheem, I want to go to what YouTube did today, and particularly on the right. You know, we had Darren Beatty on right after you, and Darren's somebody that's really talked to me about this years ago, right after I left the White House. He thought this was going to be one of the most significant things was this, basically the big tech oligarchs shutting down social media and making sure that the connective tissue that was there for the Trump revolution in 15 and 16 was basically obliterated. What has been your sense today, because you're as close to this as anybody, what has been your sense out there in the community, and particularly the influencers, the people that drive Twitter for the right, the people that are that have big YouTube shows? What has been their sense today?
Broadly, the left continues to allege that the right is dividing America. Meanwhile, the big tech left-wing platforms are actually literally dividing the nation as it pertains to getting information. People will, look, Rumble will become to YouTube what Parler is to Twitter. And, of course, we know that I've seen the MSNBC segments lamenting Parler. I've read the New York Times article lamenting its existence. Hey, they told us they don't want us on their platforms. They told us to go away, build your own, and have your own little things. That's fine, except they're not little. They're growing by the day. This gives a massive market opportunity to platforms that do believe in free speech. And conservatives are kind of tired of whining about this stuff now, and they're actually taking action. One of those actions is they're unsubscribing from their YouTube premium accounts. They're unsubscribing from YouTube TV, which for some time was seen as kind of a cord cutter's alternative to having cable television in your home. And they're saying goodbye to that as well. This is going to divide the country in terms of where people get their information. And as far as I'm concerned, if that's what they want, that's fine by me. Because all that does is make our information freely available to those who want to access it.
Do you not think, what is this issue about just being in a ghetto where all you're hearing is a reverberation of people that agree with you, or at least part of the spectrum that agrees with you? How much do you think it hurts getting that message out? Because remember, 30% of our show is Democrats. When we do Vox Populi, Raheem, you've been here. When we get the calls, half the calls are from people that were Democrats or working class Democrats or were Democrats before they started listening to the show. Is there that problem or that issue in Rumble and Parler, as great as these platforms are, and these entrepreneurs should really have an attaboy for putting this together, putting the capital together, the technology together? Are you concerned, particularly someone that you at the National Pulse, you write at a quality that is equivalent to the mainstream media. Are you concerned that you get ghettoized?
In the short run, sure. But when you think about it, when you look at the newspaper markets, when you look at the television markets, America's ghettoized in that sense anyway. So expanding that over to big tech and the social media platforms, I don't think is going to make a whole lot of difference. What these guys are doing is cluing Americans up, coaching Americans up into how to find the information that they're looking for and the voices that they trust. And I'm very grateful that big tech is so willing to push people further away, because it means that they can no longer intervene with their shields that they put on tweets and their warning messages that they put on YouTube videos. That's absolutely fine by me. Short term, yeah, look, it's going to be a problem. Everything, look, we're kitted out for it. We're ready for it. In the long run, I think actually what this does is it enables people to better find the information and the voices that they trust.
To think downrange about tomorrow, you've got Wisconsin at the Supreme Court. You actually have the first hearing, and they're going to talk about the evidence. People know that are dialed into constant arguments are some of the strongest arguments we've got because he caught them dead to rights, right? And you've had these tremendous election officials like Knudsen and Spindall that refuse to back down. Tomorrow you're actually going to hear it argued at the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. How much of a slingshot effect can that give if that goes well tomorrow and people for the first time are actually seeing hard evidence presented about how some of these state officials tried to steal this election in places like Wisconsin? How big an effect strategically on communications that have driving the narrative that this election was stolen?
Yeah, and I think every day that goes by, we get another amplification. And when we think that there might be a slow news day, suddenly, boom, A.G. Paxton comes out with an epic 154-page complaint, and then today YouTube then says this, and there's just going to be no quiet news days for the foreseeable future, right? And so every single day you're getting a new amplification, you're getting a new opportunity, and it's a great credit to the people around the president and the people who have refused to let this fight go, that we're actually still not just in the fight, but the fight, I genuinely believe, is getting better and better, more comprehensive, more detailed, more to the point every single day. So I'm excited about tomorrow. No matter how it goes, remember, the American public will get to hear more and more arguments every single day, and that's what's important here.
Raheem, how do people get access to you during the day? What's all the social media coordinates for you?
Yeah, I'm just Raheem on Parler. I'm Raheem Kassam on Twitter. Obviously, the nationalpulse.com is covering as much of this stuff as we can possibly cover. And there's a whole load of breaking stories up there. I want to make sure that people are going to www.stopthecensors.com, because if YouTube kicks the war room off in the next hour, day, week, whatever it is, if you go to www.stopthecensors.com, you can sign up to our mailing list and make sure that you never miss a beat.
Raheem, thank you so much. I know you're very harried this afternoon. Thanks for calling in and joining the show. Our co-host Raheem Kassam. Okay, we're going to put it up on the website on Bannon's War Room. We're going to put it up on the War Room site. We're going to get it up. Hopefully, other people that listen to the show all these states. It's one thing to sign an amicus brief. We need them to intervene. You saw with the Trump campaign, John Eastman, the great lawyer and also a Claremont fellow, he wrote this briefing that they joined in the suit. We need the other states to intervene. We need the War Room posse to politely and nicely but firmly contact your state attorney generals and get them to intervene in this case. All the information up. We'll be back with Jack Maxey in a minute.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, the President of the United States has just intervened into the case, and his lawyer is John Eastman. We're working to get Mr. Eastman onto the show tomorrow to walk through the logic. We've had 17 states that have supported or sent amicus briefs. I want to give these again: Missouri, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, West Virginia. So far, in the audience, we're going to have it up on the website to get the basic information. Reach out to your attorney general. They need to intervene like the president and the campaign intervene. We need intervention here. We need support. and I can now confirm that Mr. Eastman, we're going to start the show tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with John Eastman, the renowned legal scholar and lawyer that is representing the campaign of the President of the United States. They've just intervened in the Texas lawsuit. This is going to be explosive. Also, I can tell you my sources say that the folks out in Wisconsin are very confident. They have an incredibly compelling case that's going to go up tomorrow in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So this thing is building to a crescendo, ladies and gentlemen. And don't believe YouTube, don't believe anybody. Look at the numbers. The American people are fair people. The American people are decent people. The American people are honest people. If they get the proper information, they're going to make the right decisions. Part of that information that we've been adamant about is not just the details and what we call the receipts, whether that's for Hunter Biden, who's now being investigated by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, right? Or the math about the stealing of this election. One of the biggest things is all these mathematical anomalies. Jack Maxey, our co-host here in the War Room, has been out on assignment, working day and night for weeks with some of the most sophisticated people in the world to talk about the analytics of exactly what went on here. This is the beginning of a number series of segments we're going to do with Jack and the team he's working with. I want to turn it over now to the one and only, the conscience of the War Room, Jack Maxey, who's going to walk through with his analytical team at least some of the work they've got today. Jack, take it away.
Hey, listen, I'm really proud to have worked with these guys in Switzerland, real patriots, and I want to go right into it. We've got Vincent from Zurich. He's become famous because he and his team. But let's roll that video because we can talk about it in the background. Vincent, you're there, right?
Yes, I'm here.
So what you're going to see here, Vincent, will you describe what's happening, the colored dots and what they represent?
Yes, so those are all votes that are being basically applied. So ballots are being applied, and you can see that Pennsylvania is populating slowly but surely. And it hits then a point where basically everyone in Pennsylvania has a ballot applied for, and then you can look at Washington below and at New York. They start applying like crazy. So then you see the applications filling up until they are quite full. In New York, it's alone 10,000 ballots that are basically situated in New York. You can see now that a few of them are going orange, which means that they're being sent out to voters. And you can see now the applications going crazy in Washington and New York and even Boston and other states. In total, it's 97,000 ballots that were mailed outside of Pennsylvania, but that are basically for Pennsylvania. 80 of them returned. So 80 of them voted, actually.
So what's interesting about this, when we look at this, you can go to San Diego, you can go to Los Angeles, you can go around the country and see. And it's not to say that there's something completely nefarious about this, but we started looking at some of the imbalances in this. And we can go, please give us the imbalanced votes, if you would, to throw up there. There's a beautiful map of both Pennsylvania, the imbalanced and possible ballots. And if you see this, these are roughly 30,000 ballots, isn't it? Or 33,000 ballots, Vincent?
Yes.
Have impossible dates, i.e. I requested it on August 1st, and it was voted on August 7th, and it was sent to me on August 30th, something like that. Completely impossible reality. And so the first picture shows us the little dots where all of these impossible ballots populate, and because they're impossible ballots, they tend to imply that they're not real, right? Then we decided to compare with the map of Pennsylvania and the counties that Donald Trump lost. And all of a sudden, particularly in the northeast of Pennsylvania, you start to see what seems to be a pattern here with these impossible ballots and locations where Donald Trump seemed to have some odd voting. And we see this kind of analysis is able to be done everywhere. Can you guys throw up the deceased Pennsylvania voters PDF? You can run that, because this is something I think is very interesting. And Vincent can talk to this. One of the problems we've had is getting good data, and I want our listeners to understand this. If we can get the mail-in, absentee, and voter rolls from every state in the union. We can visualize it down to the neighborhood, down to the house on this mapping technology that they've created. And so Vincent went and looked, and we found over 1,000 deceased voters who not only applied for a ballot, received the ballot, signed it, filled it out, mailed it back. And if you guys can run that PDF in the background, it'll give our viewers an understanding. And one of the biggest problems that we've had is that we've not been able to get the Social Security death indexes for the recent year. All we can get are what's publicly available to 2014. So these problems can be proved, and each one of those is a felony. And then, Vincent, talk about the fact that we saw how many votes were voted actually outside of Pennsylvania.
Yes, so there are 80,000 outside of Pennsylvania that have returned for Pennsylvania. But this is just a small, narrow window of data that we had access to. So with more data, I'm sadly pretty sure that there's more than that. But yes, so those are 80,000 that we captured that were basically casted for Pennsylvania, but outside of Pennsylvania. Yeah, we are pretty sure it's the number is way higher. So
no, Jack, Maxey, Jack, hang on. When you say cast outside of Pennsylvania, just for the audience, that couldn't possibly be an absentee ballot? You mean that's actually somebody that's ready?
It could be, and you do see some concentrations around universities and things like this. We're not trying to imply that every one of these ballots cast outside was necessarily a fraudulent ballot. But then when we do things like, for example, we compare the voter rolls in Michigan and we compare the voter rolls in Pennsylvania, and we find 165,000 people on those rolls who share first name, middle name, last name, and birth date. And if you take it down to being, instead of Robert James Smith to Bobby James Smith, they become even larger. And you start to see some very odd patterns. I mean, one of the things that, Vincent, I don't know if we have that graph, if you guys have the graph of the voting. For example, votes were tallied or cast, like received back, before they'd actually even been mailed in Pennsylvania. And so what we're seeing, what Vincent's showing inside this data, is much of what we've been listening to in the testimony over the last several weeks seems to be borne out inside the data. Like, for example, if we take Pennsylvania, some of those maps down to a very narrow focus on neighborhoods, you'll find out that the whole neighborhood received their ballot on the same day and sent it back, and it was received all on the same day. Almost, these are sort of mathematical impossibilities, if you will. So really our biggest plea, and I know Vincent would join me in this, is for more data from whatever source we can get, but mainly the mail-in data is so important because we have three records. We have the record of the request, we have the record of it being sent, and we have the record of it being returned. And all of these can be matched to voter rolls. And as you look through the data, believe me, there are so many irregularities. Maybe you could throw up, if we have time, the Pennsylvania top 3,000 P.O. boxes PDF, and Vincent can tell us about it.
Yeah, we found countless PO boxes with hundreds of voters per PO box. And we also looked at concentration of that. We also subtracted or we identified normal things, but we also identified really weird things, like, for instance, a very small little shack that has 20 votes to it. We found really weird addresses in there that don't make any kind of sense. And we also, through those PO boxes, we also found people that are in with the same address, just a different spelling of the name. So basically, they have like a Brandon or Brandy, same birth date, same everything. And we found countless of those examples where there's maybe an L or another letter in the middle of the name that changes. But so those PO boxes, in my opinion, are definitely a hotspot for weird things going on, and definitely are
when you say hang on, when you say PO boxes, you can't send a ballot request or to vote from a P.O. box. You've got to give a home address. Just even having a P.O. box in a. I tell you what, let's take a short commercial break.
We're not the attorneys, Steve.
I know. Hang on. I want to bring you guys back. Jack, Maxey, and I got Vincent, the data analyst from Zurich, and we're going to have Jesse Morgan, the truck driver for the Postal Service, is going to join us next too. They had a rally out at the Postal Center in Bethpage today where he picked up the load of ballots. We're going to return. I've got a couple of questions on the data side before we go to the from the sublime to the more sublime, from the ballots, from the actual shipping of the ballots. We're going to take a short commercial break. You're in the war room. There's so much news going on. The president's campaign, John Eastman, has told us he's going to be on the show at 10 a.m. to start the show tomorrow to walk through why the president of the United States and the campaign intervened and joined in with the state of Texas in this massive lawsuit that is en route to the Supreme Court. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be back with Jack and Vincent in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, our guest this segment is going to be Jesse Morgan, the heroic, courageous, working class driver for the Postal Service, the contractor that came forward in a really a show of bravery to talk about what happened to his trailer that he can't find and nobody can find. We're going to get to Jesse in a moment. They had a protest out at Bethpage at the Postal Center today. Want to get all of Jesse's thought. I want to go back to Jack Maxey. My co-host here has been on special assignment working on a very detailed analytics project around different states, starting in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Okay, guys, let me get this right. Roughly 3 million, as I remember you told me you had 3 million, a pool of 3 million, I guess, ballot requests, right? 2.6 million, I think, voted. So there's 400,000 that have not been returned or are somewhere out there. Of the 2.6 million, if you had to sit down with authorities, Vincent and Jack, and say, look, we think that this should have further inquiry by people who are professionals and do this for a living. Of the 2.6 million, what percentage of that, guys, do you think would be the ones you feel comfortable having legal authority, both election officials, lawyers, and investigators, right, take a look at?
Vincent?
Well, I would say a good 25 to 30%. Just to look at, to go deeper in, there's a lot to find in there. And the 437,000, I would also not dismiss right out. I would definitely look into them, why they haven't returned, or what are the circumstances, what are the pattern in the not returned ones, because we suspect that the not returned ones could be part of the whole picture. There must be a good reason why the system is behind it, that they were ordered in the first place and not returned. So we would look at the non-returned one and a good 30% of the ones that have been returned. We found quite a large amount that have irregular patterns in them and that do raise suspicion. And 25 to 30%, I would say, definitely have to be looked at.
You know, Victor, you're not a partisan, but in people, there's this huge controversy now about shutting down any discussion about election fraud, election malfeasance, or voter fraud. Do you think even-handed people, because you're talking about 350,000 to 400,000 you think that voted should be looked at, and another 400,000 that never got returned, just to see what's in back of this mail-in ballot fiasco. Do you think that people who are not partisans for Trump or for Biden, that this information will be something that logical, sensible people would at least want to get to the bottom of, right? Not saying, hey, I'm a Trump guy and it's got to be against Biden, or I'm a Biden guy and I hate Trump, that this doesn't count, but just want to get to actually what the facts are. Is that something you think that just basic, rational Americans would want to get their arms around?
I definitely hope so. And from the experience that I made, I had to make a few phone calls and also called government offices. And I talked to last time a lady in Texas, I had the feeling after a few minutes that she was not a Republican, but I still had a very civil conversation with her, and I really tried to get the best out of her. I would definitely hope so that that from both sides it has to be very important to look into this, because this has nothing to do with party, and this has nothing to do with Trump. This is a grave violation of everyone's right, and both sides are getting hurt by this, and the interest of both sides have to be protected. I mean, yeah, maybe it looks like the candidate of the left would win, but with those methods in place, I would also, if I were a left person, I would wonder why did they do it this way. I hope there are enough people from both sides to actually push for this, and I see that maybe this is the case.
Okay, Vincent, I want to thank you. Jack, I want to thank you. And now we're going to go through it in the coming days ahead. I want to thank you guys for the extraordinary work. We'll wash, rinse, and repeat on this to make sure that everybody understands it. So, Jack,
we'll have
Vincent.
some more little tidbits as we keep asking questions.
Okay, Jack, Maxey, and Vincent and the analytics team, they're doing a great job. I love the maps. Now, even I can understand it. Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
so
Vincent, and thanks for the work. The volunteers, it's been amazing to crowdsource this. So much out there is crowdsourced because people are patriots and they want to step up and they want to get to the bottom of it and they want to get the answers. And I think somebody like Vincent is saying, hey, this is not about partisanship. People on the left should want to know the answers. That's just like the people on the right. This is what I don't understand about YouTube and about these other guys. You have to have an inquiry. What is this, like the Middle Ages and about the Earth was flat and the dragon's going to get you if you go too far out? No. The method of inquiry has always been ask questions, the Socratic method, right? This is what we pride ourselves here, the Socratic method. Continue to ask questions. And here's the thing. The more you try to suppress it, this information is only going to get out. That's why almost 50% of the American people, and this is in the polling of NBC. This is not some poll done by Richard Barris for the War Room. This is polls that are done by the major news organizations. Look at the buried, may not be in the headlines. Go down and look at the buried leads or go look at the crosstabs. Basically right now, somewhere between 43 and 47, 48% of the American people know something was up, know something's wrong. They just look at the math. Look at the math that's in the Texas suit. You should go read the Texas suit in its entirety and read the John Eastman 30-pager of the day, that part of the suit. But read the Texas suit to get to the mathematics. This is why it's so interesting for us with guys like Dave Ramaswamy and Vincent and these other analytical heavyweights. When you look there and they just sit there and go, this is ridiculous. Well, in the lawsuit, it says 1 in a quadrillion chance that Biden had to come back or how far he was down. Okay, that's rationality. That's data-based, science-based, evidence-based, which we've been on war and pandemic from the very beginning. When Dr. Fauci was sitting there dismissing this pandemic as nothing was going to happen on the 23rd of January and then he adamantly fought Peter Navarro and others about stopping flights from China and quarantining people when they came back. All those first moves that saved so many lives. Okay, I want to go to an American hero now, Jesse Morgan, the truck driver that for the Postal Service, a contractor that went out there. Jesse, there was a protest out at Bethpage today, and now we've started to have some analytics. We're starting to put things on heat maps to show how votes came in from areas of New York and other areas. Here's what our audience, I got overwhelmed with questions. Your truck, I take it, had GPS on it. How difficult could it be to locate a Mack truck, a tractor trailer? I know you've got the tractor, but the trailer that could hold 144,000 to 288,000 ballots. How difficult could that actually be to find?
All right, so my tractor has a GPS, all right? So I have electronic log. So as soon as I move and get past 3 miles per hour, it'll start registering. I'll start tracking everywhere it goes. The trailer, I don't know if the trailer had a tracker on it or not. It's like a 30% chance, 70% chance it might have, might not have. The trailer was actually relatively new, so it might not have had a tracker on it.
So in all the investigators that have come to you since then, because what the audience wants is somebody actively pursuing where this is and where those ballots ended up. Are they just hassling you for how you got into the process and really gave voice to this because you're kind of like one of the equivalents of the tape in Atlanta, where you can look at it and you know something's up. You step forward and you know something's up.
Yeah.
The woman in Michigan steps forward and you know something's up. So are any investigative people that have been associated with you or talked to you? Did we lose Jesse? We lost Jesse. So we'll get.
No, I'm right here.
Okay, Jesse. So is anybody
I'm here.
there? Is anybody that's come to you? Is anybody actually doing an investigation?
They whenever, all right, so they came and interviewed me, interrogated me, whatever you want to call it, and then after that, they've been harassing my family, like he's been calling family, trying to figure out if I have Republican ties, how did I get on TV? These are the things that I've been told that they've been asking, and it's really, really sad because they're not investigating a trailer that's missing that was full of freaking ballots, man. Like, I'm just like, are you really? It's insane what they're doing. It's really insane, and it's really sad.
Jesse, what investigative authorities have called your friends and asked you if you had Republican ties, and who is it that is hassling your family?
Well, I had the FBI. So whenever I sat down with 4 different agencies. We try to get it set up kind of like that instead of just having, because basically the post office wanted to interview me, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, that makes no sense. Like, why are we going to have the post office investigate their own crime? Like, that makes no sense, you know. So we kind of just try to set it up with multiple agencies, which was like the FBI. I believe like the post office is like the OGI of the special agent there. I might be saying it wrong. And there was a few others like a fraud task force and stuff like that that came out. If I'm missaying their names, please excuse me. But there's 2 other ones. They really didn't say too much. But basically, the FBI really didn't. None of the other agencies really asked any questions. It was just the special agent for the United States Postal Service, and he's the one that's been harassing the families, harassing my family, trying to figure out how I got on TV and whatnot. So that's where I'm at.
This is the U.S. Postal Service inspector. Is the one that's been.
Yeah.
And do you have a name of this individual?
Yes.
Do you have a name of this individual?
He has a weird name. But he goes by Special Agent Sturgis.
Okay.
It's like he calls it short, but his name is kind of long and hard to pronounce. I don't even have the business card on me to try to.
And he has not really drilled down on the facts about where the trailer is. You think he's done more to? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you think he's done more just to hassle your family about how you came out in public on this?
Yeah, his very last question he asked me in the interview before we cut it off was, "How'd you get on national TV?" That's where his mind is. It's really sad. Like you have people coming out that are coming forward about this stuff, and this is how they're treating it.
Has anybody in the Wealth of Pennsylvania, the Attorney General's office, the Governor's office, anybody deal with election security? Has anybody in Pennsylvania come to you and interviewed you and tried to look like they made any effort to find out where this trailer is?
No one has. No one has at all.
Okay, Jesse. I tell you what, we're going to follow up with Sturgis, and we're going to follow up with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We'll try to drill down on this. You're a hero, and it's shocking. And I think our audience finds it shocking, given the level of claims and given how difficult. I mean, it can't be that difficult to find this trailer. It seems like there's been no emphasis at all. The emphasis has been to hassle you because you came forward, not to actually find out where these ballots are or what happened to these ballots.
Yeah, and the sad thing also, I just want to make it clear. Like, I don't want to be labeled as a hero, right? Like, let's not label me there. I'll say I might be a little bit brave, but let's not do the hero. I'm just doing what any American that I would think would do, stand up for the country, because what's going on is absolutely wrong. once you start messing around with the integrity of the vote, that's our one voice. That's our voice. You know, my brother went and fought over in the war, and did 2 tours over there. Maybe he did 3. Had shrapnel on him. And
Jesse, hang up for the next segment. Just we're going to hold you over.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, a lot of news explaining this afternoon. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at the start of the show, we're going to have John Eastman, the lawyer for the president, that's now intervened in or joined into this case with the state of Texas. He's going to explain why. We're also going to have a detailed assessment of what's going on in Wisconsin as they get ready to argue in front of their Supreme Court. So we'll start the show off with that tomorrow. I want to go back to Jesse Morgan. Jesse, I know you're modest, but remember, people think you're a hero, and here's the reason. You've stepped forward when so many people would look the other way. You've stepped forward, and obviously what happens when you step forward, you're going to get hassled. You can see that already in social media. But what I think outrages people that the authorities that should be on top of this are spending more time asking you questions about how you got to the Amistad Project and Phil Klein and were up on at his press conference than they are trying to find your trailer. I mean, how hard is it to find a trailer that's that size has got somewhere around 250,000 ballots in it? So, the people in this country look at you as someone, and I understand you're modest and your families has served our country as patriots. But, sir, people think of you as a hero because not only did you come forward, you're not backing down. You're sitting there going, hey, we got to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, and it's insane because I put the trailer number out there, and I haven't had one person send me a picture of it. You'd think there's probably 1 million truck drivers out there. Someone will see trailer 10R 1440. But I haven't got no pictures of it. I haven't been told where it's at or nothing like that.
Well, we'll help you on this relentless search for the ballots in that trailer. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank your brother and your family for service to the country. Really appreciate it and appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you, and it's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thanks. Jesse Morgan, I mean, what a disgrace. When the U.S. Postal Service guys asked him, how did you get on national TV? Hey, how about this, bro? None of your business, right? How about finding the trailer, you hack, right? You hack. Here's how I got on national TV. I got on there, right? That's not for the Postal Service to figure out. Here's what you're to figure out. Find the trailer and find the ballots. YouTube and people are sitting there going, hey, it's time to shut it all down. Well, there's questions, and basically people that are rational human beings have questions. Now, maybe Jesse's a liar. Hey, if that's the case, then the investigators should say he'd never had a trailer. He dreamt the whole thing up, right? Jesse never had a trailer. He never drove for the post office. If that's the case, bring that forward. You don't hear any of that. So let's get to the bottom of it. Let's find out what happened to those ballots. This is what people want to know. This is the most important election in the history of the republic, and I didn't say that. The officers that signed the letter to President Trump, and we said it's the most important election in 5,000 years of Chinese history because of our relationship with Lao Beijing and the whistleblower movement in the new federal state of China and the diaspora of the Chinese. I want to bring in now Ian Everhart. Ian is an investigative whistleblower movement. He's done a terrific job of doing writings up on G News, GTV. An incredible young man. I think he's a Fulbright scholar. But Ian, I got a question. There's a rally tomorrow of human rights groups that are coming together that says the Chinese Communist Party should be designated by the United States as a transnational criminal organization. Every day we're hearing investigations coming up. The general counsel in Houston has just, I think, been arrested in Australia as a Chinese spy. You've got this Fang situation. Hunter Biden is now under investigation by the U.S. attorneys for his taxes because guess what? Of his relations with the Chinese Communist Party. So, Ian, the question to you is very simple. Is there a pattern of action out there that the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, should be designated as a transnational criminal organization?
Yeah, hi, Steve. It's an honor to be on your show, and I think there absolutely is a pattern of behavior. There is currently a a bill before Congress called Designating the CCP as a Transnational Organized Crime Group Act. And I encourage all of your listeners to go research that bill. It presents a very clear case of consistently criminal behavior by the Chinese Communist Party, including there's an intelligence report from the DEA showing that the CCP is the main provider of fentanyl that's fueling the drug crisis in the United States. And also, there's this whole concept that the whistleblower movement has been exposing called BGY, which stands for Blue, Gold, and Yellow. And that is the CCP's long-term strategy for corrupting, compromising, and influencing elites around the world, not only in the United States, but basically Blue stands for their information, internet, media controls. They buy up stakes in media corporations. They buy up advertisements like in the Wall Street Journal. Gold just refers to directly giving people money to get what they want. And then yellow refers to all sorts of sexual extortion and honey traps. And this is really their modus operandi. They've been operating like this for decades. And this is how they've been corrupting people. We just saw, as you mentioned, this Fong Fong story. She's like this student at, I think, CSU, California State University in the San Francisco area. And this was back in the Obama era in 2012, 2011. She established relationships with now Congressman Eric Swalwell back when he was just a city councilor in Dublin, California. And she had relationships with multiple other mayors. This is part of their long-term strategy for intelligence infiltration, where you go after somebody at a very early level in their career and establish years or even decades of a relationship with these people. I could go on. There's many other examples. For example, Dianne Feinstein.
I tell you what, we want to bring you back tomorrow, but here's the question. What is it going to take? We got about 30 seconds. What is it going to take? Liz Ure sent a letter to Bill Barr, and there's an executive order out there from the president. What technically can our audience do to support the designation of the CCP as a transnational criminal organization?
Well, there's two critical things. The one is to go to your member of Congress to get this bill passed. But even more important than Congress on this issue is the executive branch, the Treasury Department, the White House, the military, the State Department, intelligence agencies. And that really means we have to stay the course that President Trump started when he took office. You can't have a crime family like the Bidens who are totally compromised through Hunter Biden. You can't have these kinds of people become president. You have to stay the course with what we have now in the White House.
Okay,
if you really want to go after the CCP.
Ian, I'm going to bring you back tomorrow because you've got a level of detail we want to get into. This story's load. We've been hammering this for a year. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., back in the war room. John Eastman, president's lawyer, joining Texas in the lawsuit.